Snow fell in thick curtains, red and blue lights sweeping across the wet pavement. Caleb Harris knelt on the freezing ground, wrists locked tight behind his back, while Mia clung to his jacket, sobbing. Officer Natalie Brooks had responded to a call about a drunk man causing trouble, so her voice came out cold as steel. Caleb just shook his head, trying to meet his daughter's eyes. When Natalie pulled up his sleeve for a quick search, the fabric rolled back and a sharp black tattoo emerged. She stopped breathing. The night had started simply enough. Caleb had picked up Mia late from the after-school program, his shift at Ridgeway Plaza running past 9 again. At 36, he looked older than his years, exhaustion carved into the lines around his eyes. His maintenance uniform bore oil stains that wouldn't wash out, and his hands showed calluses from years of night work fixing heating systems and electrical panels in the commercial complex downtown. Their apartment waited for them on the second floor of a building that had seen better decades. Inside, furniture sagged with age but stood arranged with careful precision. Mia's homework papers covered the kitchen table in neat stacks. A single photo frame sat on the bookshelf, turned just slightly away from casual view. Caleb kept the space clean, kept it safe, kept it quiet. That was all that mattered now. Mia had chattered about her math test on the drive home, waving a paper marked with a bright red 94. Her enthusiasm filled the old sedan like sunlight. Caleb had smiled, really smiled, and squeezed her hand at a stoplight. They needed milk and instant noodles, so he pulled into the Hawthorne Market parking lot, the fluorescent signs buzzing in the cold air. Inside the convenience store, warmth and bright lights made everything feel safer for a moment. Mia picked out her favorite cup noodles while Caleb grabbed a gallon of milk and a box of granola bars. The young cashier, Jasmine Reed, smiled at Mia and complimented her unicorn backpack. Simple. Normal. The kind of evening that made Caleb believe they might actually be okay. But outside, near the ATM, trouble was already brewing. Derek Lawson stood too close to an elderly woman, his voice rising in sharp bursts. Edith Monroe, at 67, clutched her purse with both hands, her shoulders hunched forward. Derek's clean jacket and styled hair made him look respectable to anyone passing by, but his eyes held something cold. He was demanding something, his words fast and cutting. Caleb saw it through the window as he paid. His body went still, that old training kicking in before his mind could catch up. He handed Mia the grocery bag and told her to wait inside, near Jasmine. Mia's eyes went wide, but she nodded, sensing something in her father's tone. Outside, the December air bit at Caleb's face. He approached calmly, hands visible, voice level. Derek had moved from Edith to Jasmine now, who had stepped outside during her break. He was inches from her face, accusing her of insulting him, of refusing his card on purpose, of thinking she was better than him. Jasmine backed against the brick wall, her breath coming fast. Caleb stepped between them, not aggressive, just present. His voice came out quiet but firm. Enough. The police are on their way. Walk away. Derek's expression shifted instantly. The anger vanished, replaced by something calculated. He looked at Caleb's worn jacket, his tired face, the grocery bag visible through the window with a 7-year-old girl holding it, and Derek smiled. He stumbled backward, intentionally clumsy, and his arm swept across a display of energy drinks near the entrance. Cans clattered across the pavement. Derek's voice rose to a shout now, performing for the few people in the parking lot. "This man attacked me. He threatened me. Look at him." Derek pointed at Caleb with theatrical horror, his other hand pressed to his chest as if wounded. Jasmine tried to speak up, but Derek talked over her, his voice carrying. "I was just standing here and he came at me. Somebody call the police." Several people had their phones out now, recording, but they had started filming after the cans fell, catching only the aftermath, only Caleb standing there with Derek pointing and shouting. When Caleb took one step forward, trying to calm Derek down, Derek grabbed his own wrist and hissed in pain, as if Caleb had hurt him. The performance was flawless. Inside the store, Mia pressed against the window, her small hands leaving prints on the glass. Natalie Brooks arrived 6 minutes later, her patrol car sliding to a stop near the entrance. At 29, she had built her career on discipline and precision. She kept her hair pulled back tight, her uniform crisp, her expression neutral. The job demanded respect in a department that still questioned whether women belonged in patrol cars. She earned that respect by being better prepared, faster to respond, and unwilling to bend procedure. The scene she found looked clear enough. A well-dressed man with a bleeding scratch on his forearm, breathing hard, surrounded by spilled drinks. A rough-looking maintenance worker standing too close, wearing clothes that had seen too many shifts. A little girl crying inside the store. Witnesses with phones out, filming. Derek played his part perfectly. "Officer, thank God you're here. This man attacked me. I don't know if he's drunk or what, but he just came at me. I was terrified for that little girl. What if he does something?" His voice shook with just the right amount of fear, with just enough concern for Mia to sound like a good citizen. Natalie looked at Caleb. He stood very still, hands at his sides, not arguing or defending himself. His eyes moved to Mia, then back to Natalie. That silence, that stillness, it looked like guilt to someone trained to read body language in tense situations. Natalie made her decision in seconds. "Sir, I need you to turn around and place your hands on the vehicle." Caleb's jaw tightened. "Please. Not in front of my daughter. I didn't do anything." His voice stayed low, steady, but something flickered in his eyes, something that looked like old pain resurfacing. Natalie had seen people play the victim card 1,000 times. She had learned not to fall for sob stories. "Sir, turn around now." When Caleb hesitated, still looking at Mia through the window, Natalie moved forward and guided him toward the patrol car. Caleb went without resistance, but every line of his body showed defeat. The handcuffs clicked into place, metal cold against his wrists. Inside the store, Mia's scream cut through the glass. "Daddy!" She ran outside, her unicorn backpack bouncing, tears streaming down her face. "No, don't hurt my daddy. He didn't do anything bad." A bystander caught Mia before she could reach Caleb. The little girl fought against gentle hands, her whole body shaking with sobs. Natalie felt something twist in her chest, but she pushed it down. This was procedure. This was protection. She had to secure the scene first, get statements later, sort truth from performance back at the station. But then came the moment that changed everything. Natalie conducted a quick search for weapons, standard protocol. She needed to check Caleb's jacket pockets, his waistband. When she reached for his right arm to check the sleeve, the fabric rolled up past his elbow. The tattoo sat there on his forearm, black ink bold against his skin. A small shield, the number 17 inside it, and beneath that, 2 words in sharp capitals. "Hold. Fast." Natalie's hands stopped moving. Her breath caught in her throat. The parking lot seemed to tilt, sounds fading to nothing but the rush of blood in her ears. She knew that tattoo. She had seen it once, years ago, in a photograph her father kept in his office. A group of men standing together, faces half-shadowed, but one arm visible in the frame. That same shield, that same number, those same words. Her father's voice echoed in her memory, spoken on a night when she was 14 and scared of shadows. "If you ever meet someone wearing this mark, Natalie, you remember they walked through darkness to pull people into light. You remember they held fast when everything broke." Her father had touched the photograph gently, his own hands scarred from service. "These men," he had said quietly, "they saved lives when no one else could." Caleb felt Natalie's hands go still on his arm. He turned his head slightly, saw her face gone pale. Without a word, he twisted his arm and pulled the sleeve back down, even with his wrists cuffed behind him. The movement was instinctive, protective, a reflex born from years of staying invisible. Derek saw it too. He saw Natalie falter, saw the color drain from her face. His smile faded just slightly, calculation replacing performance in his eyes. Natalie forced her breathing to steady. She had a job to do, a scene to process. She couldn't stand here frozen because of a tattoo that might mean nothing, that might be coincidence. But her voice came out different now when she spoke to Caleb. "We need to go to the station." For statements, her tone had lost its edge. She turned to Mia, who stood sobbing in Jasmine's arms now. "Sweetie, your dad is going to be okay. We just need to sort some things out, I promise." Mia's face crumpled further. Not believing, not trusting. Natalie felt that look like a physical blow. Back at the station, the fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Caleb sat in an interview room, still handcuffed, still silent. Captain Robert Whitman reviewed the preliminary report with barely concealed impatience. "Open and shut, Brooks. Multiple witnesses say this guy attacked Lawson. We've got video of the aftermath. Process him and let the DA sort it out in the morning." But Natalie couldn't let it go. "Sir, I'd like to review all the footage from the store. Talk to the witnesses individually." Captain Whitman's expression hardened. "You questioning the victim's statement, officer?" Natalie chose her words carefully. Whitman studied her for a long moment, then waved his hand dismissively. "Make it quick. I want this wrapped by 0300. Natalie found Mia sitting in the break room, a female officer watching over her. The little girl had stopped crying but sat curled into herself, arms wrapped around her backpack. Natalie brought her hot chocolate from the vending machine and knelt down to her level. Mia refused to look at her at first, but eventually took the cup because her hands were so cold. "Your dad's going to be okay," Natalie said softly. "I'm going to make sure we get the whole story." Mia finally looked up at her, eyes red and swollen. "You said you protect good people." Her voice came out small and broken. "Why are you doing this to my daddy?" The question hit harder than any accusation from an adult could have. Natalie had no good answer. She went back to her desk and started pulling footage. The Hawthorne Market had 3 cameras, one at the register, one covering the front entrance, and one pointed at the ATM. She watched the timestamp from 30 minutes before the incident. There was Derek approaching Edith Monroe near the ATM. The elderly woman stepped back twice, clearly uncomfortable. Derek's body language was aggressive, invasive. Then Jasmine came outside on her break, and Derek immediately turned his attention to her. The interior camera showed Caleb inside, paying for groceries, Mia beside him. He glanced outside, saw Derek confronting Jasmine, and his entire posture changed. Not aggressive, but alert. He said something to Mia, handed her the bag, and walked outside. The camera angle didn't catch what happened next, but the timestamp showed Caleb only touched Derek once, grabbing his wrist to stop him from lunging toward Jasmine. Natalie called in Jasmine Reed. The young woman came to the station at 11:30 at night, still in her work polo, exhausted but determined. She told her story clearly. Derek had been harassing Edith for money, claiming the ATM stole his card. When Jasmine went out for air, Derek immediately got in her face, accusing her of disrespecting him inside when she had simply processed his declined card. Caleb had intervened calmly, positioned himself between Derek and her, never raised his voice. Derek deliberately knocked over the drinks to make it look like a fight. Edith Monroe confirmed the same story when Natalie reached her by phone. "That nice young man protected me," the elderly woman said, her voice shaking. "That other fellow was trying to take my purse. I know a bully when I see one." Natalie reviewed Derek's statement again. He had described Caleb wearing a black jacket. The footage clearly showed dark blue. He said Mia had been outside during the confrontation. She had been inside the entire time until after Natalie arrived. Small details, but they were lies. Derek had performed his story so well that these tiny cracks only showed under scrutiny. When Natalie brought these discrepancies to Captain Whitman, his reaction surprised her. He didn't seem pleased with new evidence. Instead, he seemed annoyed. "Brooks, you're making a mountain out of a molehill here, so a couple details are off." The guy was traumatized. Memory gets fuzzy. Natalie pressed carefully. "Sir, the witnesses contradict his entire account." Whitman's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then back at Natalie with a harder edge to his voice. "Drop it, Brooks. File the report and move on." Something in his tone made Natalie's instincts flare. She had worked under Whitman for 3 years. He was demanding, sometimes harsh, but never illogical. This wasn't about procedure anymore. This was about control. She nodded slowly, but didn't drop it. She went to the interview room where Caleb sat, uncuffed now but still guarded. Natalie dismissed the officer at the door and sat across from him. Caleb looked up, his face carefully blank. "The tattoo on your arm," she said quietly. "Operation Holdfast. What does it mean?" Caleb's expression didn't change, but his hands tightened slightly on the table. "Old life. Doesn't matter now." Natalie leaned forward. "It matters to me. My father had a photograph. Men with that same tattoo. He said they saved his life once." Caleb's jaw worked silently. He looked at her for a long time, and something ancient and tired moved behind his eyes. "Then he should have told you to forget you ever saw it." "Why?" Natalie asked. Caleb's voice dropped even lower. "Because the people we fought against, some of them were inside the system. And when you stand up to power, power pushes back. It doesn't stop pushing. My wife died in a car accident 3 years ago. The brake lines were cut. I couldn't prove it, couldn't fight it without making Mia a target. So I disappeared. Took a job nobody notices, kept my head down, kept my daughter safe. That tattoo is a death sentence if the wrong person sees it." Natalie felt ice spread through her chest. Her father had died in a car accident too, 5 years ago. She had always wondered about the timing, right after he testified about irregularities in a federal case. The official report said mechanical failure. But her father had been meticulous about vehicle maintenance, paranoid about safety. "Who would want to hurt you now?" Natalie asked. Caleb shook his head. "I don't know if it's about me anymore or if Derek stumbled into this by accident. But when your captain looked at my file, something changed in his face." He made a phone call. Then, suddenly this whole thing became urgent. Natalie's throat went dry. She left the interview room and went back to her desk. Captain Whitman was in his office, door closed, speaking in low tones on his cell. Natalie couldn't hear the words, but she saw his expression through the window. Concerned, maybe even worried. When he hung up and saw her watching, his face smoothed into professional neutrality. Natalie made a decision that could end her career. She stepped into the women's restroom, pulled out her personal phone, and called a number she had saved years ago. Special Agent Rachel Kim of the FBI had worked with her father on an investigation once. Natalie explained the situation quickly, efficiently, leaving out nothing. The tattoo, the witnesses, Derek's lies, Whitman's reaction, Caleb's history. Rachel listened without interrupting. When Natalie finished, Rachel was quiet for a moment. Then, Operation Holdfast was real, classified. Off-book team that pulled witnesses and assets out of hostile situations. They disappeared people who knew too much about organized crime, corrupt officials. The operation ended 8 years ago after several team members died under suspicious circumstances. If your guy is really one of them, he's been living on borrowed time. And if your captain is involved in shutting this down, we need to move carefully. They formed a plan. Rachel would send a team, but it would take hours. In the meantime, Natalie needed to keep Caleb and Mia safe and gather enough evidence to trap Derek into a confession. The FBI couldn't move without solid proof that wouldn't get thrown out in court. Natalie arranged for Mia to stay with Jasmine Reed temporarily, with official approval as an emergency placement. When she explained this to Mia, the little girl's face crumpled again. "I want my daddy." Natalie knelt down and took Mia's small hands in hers. "I know, sweetheart. And I'm going to make this right. I promise you. Your dad is a good man, and I'm going to prove it." Mia studied Natalie's face, searching for truth. "You really promise?" Something in her tone must have reached through Mia's fear, because the little girl finally nodded back. Processing Caleb's release took another hour. Whitman tried to block it, citing concerns about evidence, but Natalie pulled rank on procedure. Without formal charges, they couldn't hold him. When Caleb walked out into the cold night air, he found Natalie waiting by her personal car. "Get in," she said. "We need to talk somewhere safe." They drove to a diner on the edge of town, nearly empty at 2 in the morning. In a corner booth, over coffee neither of them drank, Caleb told his story. The real one. Operation Holdfast had been his life for 6 years. He specialized in tactical extraction, getting people out of situations where regular law enforcement couldn't reach. Witnesses in mob trials, undercover agents whose covers were blown. Once, a prosecutor and his family when a cartel put a price on their heads. Caleb's team moved fast, moved quiet, left no trace. But on their last mission, 8 years ago, everything went wrong. They were extracting a federal witness who had evidence of a conspiracy involving police officials, city council members, and organized crime figures across 3 states. The intel they had been given was compromised. The team walked into an ambush. 3 men died that night. Caleb survived with a bullet scar under his ribs and the knowledge that someone high up had sold them out. The investigation afterward was buried, classified, sealed. Caleb tried to pursue it, tried to find who had leaked their operation, but every door closed in his face. Then his wife started getting followed. Strange cars parked outside their house, anonymous threats. When she died in that accident, Caleb knew. He couldn't prove it, couldn't fight it without proof. So he took Mia and disappeared into the kind of life where nobody looks twice. Night shift maintenance. Cheap apartment. No friends, no profile. No trace of the man he used to be. The tattoo was his mistake. He had gotten it with his team after their first successful mission, young and stupid and thinking they were invincible. Now it was a beacon for anyone who knew what to look for. Natalie absorbed all of this, her coffee going cold in front of her. Army intelligence, attached to our operation as a liaison. Good man. He tried to push the investigation after the ambush. I heard he died a few years later. I'm sorry. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Natalie said, "Derek isn't random. Someone sent him to provoke you, to get you into the system where they could either silence you or find out if you still have evidence." Caleb's expression was grim. "I don't have evidence. I never did. Just suspicions. But they don't know that. Here's what we're going to do," Natalie said. She laid out the FBI's plan. They needed Derek to implicate himself and whoever sent him. That meant setting a trap. Caleb would play along, act like he was willing to deal, to keep Mia safe by pleading guilty to something minor. Derek would have to coordinate with his handler. They would catch it all on wire. It was dangerous. If Derek or Whitman suspected anything, they would disappear, and Caleb would be left holding the bag. But it was the only way. Caleb looked at Natalie for a long moment. "Why are you doing this? You could walk away, protect your career." And I watched you get handcuffed in front of your daughter for trying to protect people. If I don't fix this, I don't deserve to wear this uniform." The trap was set for the following evening. Natalie, wearing a concealed wire provided by Rachel's team, arranged a meeting with Derek at the parking garage of an abandoned office building. She told him that Caleb was willing to make a deal, plead guilty to disturbing the peace, pay a fine, anything to keep Mia out of the system. But he needed assurance that this would end here. Derek arrived 20 minutes late, too confident, too comfortable. He leaned against a concrete pillar and smiled. "So the tough guy breaks, huh? Knew he would. Nobody risks their kid." Natalie kept her expression neutral. "He just wants this over." Derek's smile widened. "Sure he does. But here's the thing, officer. This doesn't end until we know he's not going to cause problems later. We need insurance." "Who's we?" Natalie asked carefully. Derek waved a hand dismissively. "People who keep the city running smooth. People who don't like loose ends from old operations coming back to bite them." He didn't say Operation Holdfast directly, but the implication was clear. The wire was getting everything. Derek kept talking, arrogant now, thinking he had won. "Your captain knows how to play ball. Been on the payroll for years. Kept things quiet. Made sure the right cases disappeared. He's the one who told us about Harris. Saw that tattoo in the system, made a call. We took care of it." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "The guy should have stayed invisible. His wife should have kept her mouth shut. These things happen when people don't cooperate." Natalie's hand clenched around her phone in her pocket, the signal for the FBI team listening nearby. But she kept her face calm. "So what now?" Derek shrugged. "Harris takes the plea, keeps his head down. Maybe we let him live quiet. Or he makes noise, and that pretty little girl ends up in foster care or worse. Simple math." That's when Caleb emerged from the shadows behind a van, FBI agents with him. Vests marked clearly. Derek's face went white. The setup crashed down around him. Special Agent Kim stepped forward, already reading Derek his rights. Everything he had said was recorded, transmitted, documented. Derek tried to run. He made it 3 steps before agents had him on the ground. His phone was seized, and within minutes, the forensics team was pulling messages, call logs, contacts, everything they needed to trace the network back up the chain. At the police station, Captain Whitman was working late when federal agents walked through the door. He saw them coming, and his hand moved toward his desk drawer. Agent Kim's voice cut through the quiet. They found emails on his personal computer, burner phones in his car, years of payments laundered through shell accounts. He had been the leak 8 years ago. He had been the one keeping tabs on surviving Holdfast members, making sure they stayed buried or ended up dead. The arrest happened quickly, efficiently. Whitman said nothing, invoked his lawyer, but his face showed everything. Rage, fear, the collapse of a carefully built lie. As they let him out in handcuffs, he looked at Natalie with pure hatred. "You just destroyed yourself, Brooks." Natalie met his eyes steadily. "No, sir. I just remembered what the badge is supposed to mean. The paperwork took 2 days. Federal prosecutors moved fast once they had the evidence." Derek flipped immediately, naming names, giving up contacts in exchange for a reduced sentence. The conspiracy reached further than anyone had expected. City officials, a state senator, connections to organized crime that went back decades. Operation Holdfast had been shut down because it got too close to too many powerful people. Caleb's record was cleared completely. Formal exoneration, public apology from the department. The DA offered him compensation, counseling, anything he needed. Caleb took it all quietly, his focus only on Mia. When they were finally reunited, Mia ran to her father so hard she nearly knocked him over. Caleb caught her, lifted her up, held her so tight his arms shook. Daddy, she sobbed into his shoulder. I knew you didn't do anything bad. I knew it. Caleb closed his eyes and breathed in the scent of his daughter's hair. Let himself feel safe for the first time in years. Natalie came to see them a week later. They were back in their small apartment, but it felt different now. Lighter, somehow. Mia was drawing at the kitchen table when Natalie knocked. The little girl looked up, hesitated, then slowly put down her crayon. Natalie knelt down to Mia's level. I owe you an apology, she said softly. I was supposed to protect you and your dad, and instead I scared you. I'm so sorry. Mia's lower lip trembled. You hurt my daddy. Natalie nodded. I did, and that was wrong. I should have listened better. I should have looked harder for the truth. I made a mistake, and you both paid for it. Mia was quiet for a long moment. Then, my daddy says everybody makes mistakes, but good people fix them. Natalie felt her throat tighten. He's right. And I'm trying to fix mine. Is that okay? Mia thought about it, her 7-year-old face so serious. Then she nodded. Okay. Caleb stood in the doorway, watching. When Mia went back to her drawing, he and Natalie stepped into the hall. Caleb spoke first. Thank you. For believing me when you didn't have to. For risking everything. Natalie shook her head. I didn't do anything heroic. I just did my job. Finally. But there was something else Natalie needed to say. My father, she began, then stopped. Started again. He talked about you. Not by name, but he talked about the men who went into hell to bring people out. He said they were the bravest people he ever knew. Caleb's expression softened just slightly. Your father was brave, too. He stood up when it mattered. That cost him everything. They stood in the quiet hallway for a moment, both of them carrying the weight of people they had loved and lost, both of them choosing to keep going anyway. Then Natalie said, There's a position opening up, Community Safety Coordinator. It's part-time, civilian role, but it works with at-risk families, helping them navigate resources, safety planning. The department wants to rebuild trust. They thought maybe someone like you, someone who understands what it's like to fall through the cracks, might be good at it. Caleb looked surprised. That's not exactly my background. Natalie smiled slightly. Your background is protecting people when systems fail. That's exactly what this needs. He considered it, then nodded slowly. I'll think about it. Natalie was reinstated with full honors. The department, desperate to rebuild its image after Whitman's arrest, praised her courage and integrity. She accepted the commendations with quiet grace, but privately she knew the truth. She had almost been part of the problem. She had almost let procedure blind her to justice. That was a lesson she would carry forever. 3 months later, on a cold evening when the city lights reflected off fresh snow, Caleb walked Mia home from her new school. She had transferred to a better district, one of the small mercies that came with the settlement money. Mia chattered about her day, about her new friend Sophia, about the art project they were starting next week. They passed the park where holiday lights twinkled in the trees. Families gathered around a community ice rink, their laughter carrying on the crisp air. Mia tugged on Caleb's hand. Can we watch for a minute, Daddy? Caleb nodded, and they stood at the fence together. Natalie found them there, off duty now, wearing a civilian coat instead of her uniform. She had developed a habit of checking in, just making sure they were okay, not as a cop anymore, but as someone who owed them more than she could repay. Mia saw her first and waved. Officer Natalie. Then, correcting herself with a gap-toothed grin, I mean, Miss Natalie. She ran over and, to Natalie's surprise, hugged her legs tight. Natalie's eyes went bright as she hugged back. Caleb joined them, moving slower, his body language still cautious but no longer hunted. They stood together watching the skaters. 3 people bound by trauma and healing, by mistakes and redemption. Mia looked up at Natalie. "Are you going to keep protecting people?" Natalie nodded. "Always. That's my promise." Mia seemed satisfied with that. "Good. 'Cause my daddy's really good at protecting people too. Maybe you can be a team." Natalie met Caleb's eyes over Mia's head. There was understanding there, and respect, and the beginning of something that might someday be trust. Not romance, not the Hollywood version of healing, but something deeper and more real. 2 people who had seen the worst of systems and chosen to believe in redemption anyway. As they walked together through the park, Mia, between them holding both their hands, the city lights glittered like promises. The world was still complicated, still broken in 1,000 ways. But tonight, in this moment, justice had won. A good man stood free. A little girl felt safe again. An officer remembered why she took the oath in the first place. Mia started humming a song she had learned in music class. Slightly off-key, but full of joy. Caleb squeezed her hand and smiled down at her, the weight he had carried for so long finally easing from his shoulders. Natalie walked beside them, her badge in her pocket instead of on her chest, but feeling more like a protector than she ever had before. The snow began to fall again, soft and gentle, covering the city in white. Fresh. Clean. A chance to begin again. And as they passed under a street lamp, Caleb's sleeve rode up just slightly, the tattoo visible for a moment in the light. Hold fast. He had held fast through darkness. He had held fast through loss. He had held fast for his daughter when everything else fell away. And now, finally, he could hold fast to something new. Hope. Behind them, the park lights twinkled on. Families laughed. Children played. The city breathed. Life went on, as it always does, but sometimes with a little more justice than before. Sometimes with proof that one person choosing courage over convenience could change everything. Sometimes with the knowledge that redemption was not a miracle, but a choice. A hard choice. A brave choice. But a choice nonetheless. Mia looked up at her father and then at Natalie. "I'm glad you didn't give up on us," she said simply. Natalie knelt down one more time, eye level with the little girl who had asked her the hardest question she had ever faced. "I'm glad I didn't either, sweetheart. You taught me something important." Mia tilted her head. "What?" Natalie smiled. "That being brave sometimes means admitting when you're wrong, and that fixing mistakes matters more than never making them." Mia nodded solemnly, as if this made perfect sense. Then her face brightened. "Want to come get hot chocolate with us? They have marshmallows." Caleb looked at Natalie, leaving the decision to her. Natalie stood slowly, brushed snow from her knees, and nodded. "I'd like that." They walked on together through the winter evening, 3 souls bound by the hardest kind of redemption. The kind earned through truth, through pain, through the courage to choose what was right when what was easy beckoned. The kind that left scars, but also left strength. The kind that reminded everyone watching that heroes were not people who never fell, but people who got back up. People who held fast when the world told them to let go. People who chose love over fear. Justice over convenience. Hope over despair. And in the warm glow of a cafe window, over hot chocolate with extra marshmallows, a little girl smiled at her father and at the woman who had saved them both by saving herself first. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The world would still be complicated. But tonight, they had this. They had each other. They had proof that good could still win. That was enough. That was everything. That was the promise worth fighting for. That even in darkness, someone would hold fast to the light.